Hello, everyone, and welcome back. I'm Mr. Looker, and today we're diving deep into a topic that's both mysterious and thought provoking: the Great Flood Myths. These aren't just tales of disaster, they're unique interpretations of divinity, humanity, and the world order from ancient civilizations. Today we're embarking on a full blown mythical journey. I'll take you through a comparison of three very famous Great Flood stories from Western civilization. First, the Greek flood of Zeus. Then, the Sumerian flood of Utnapishtim from Mesopotamia, familiar to many from the Epic of Gilgamesh. And finally, the well-known Noah's Ark story from the Old Testament. Through these three narratives, you'll discover striking similarities as well as distinct wisdom and values unique to each civilization. The cause of the flood. Why did it happen? First, let's start with why this great flood occurred, the underlying reason for its onset. The Greek flood. In Greek mythology, it was Zeus, the king of the gods, who unleashed the great flood. Why did he do it? Simply put, humanity had become utterly depraved. Their actions were degenerate and their wickedness was rampant. King Lycaon, in particular, dared to disrespect the gods, slaughter and sacrifice, and even tried to test Zeus with human flesh. This contempt for the gods and humanity's complete moral decay thoroughly enraged Zeus, leading him to decide to unleash the flood and destroy all humans. The Sumerian flood. In the even older Sumerian myth, the cause of the Great Flood is quite fascinating. It wasn't due to human wickedness, but because humans were too noisy. Yes, you heard that right. The din of mankind on earth became so great that the gods in heaven couldn't rest peacefully. The chief god Enlil, annoyed beyond measure, conspired with other deities to launch a great flood to wipe out humanity, bringing peace to the world. This truly reflects how, in Sumerian mythology, humans were often seen more as tools of the gods, lacking divinity or even basic rights. Interestingly, however, the water god Enki was somewhat protective of humanity. He secretly warned a human survivor, covertly helping him. The Old Testament. Flood. Now let's turn to the most familiar story, the Great Flood from the Old Testament. The reason here is well known. It was due to humanity's sin and moral corruption. Yahweh God saw the people on earth, their thoughts and deeds filled with evil, and was heartbroken. He then decided to cleanse this corrupted world with a flood, leaving only the righteous. This story carries a much stronger sense of moral judgment. To quickly summarize this first part, so the Greek myth emphasizes human moral degradation. The Babylonian story offers the unique perspective of gods being disturbed by humanity's clamor. And the Bible focuses more on moral judgment and divine righteousness. Quite interesting, isn't it? The implementation of the flood. Where did the water come from? Next, let's discuss how the flood actually descended, its method of implementation. The Greek flood. Zeus employed a combination attack. He commanded the south wind god to unleash torrential rain. Simultaneously, his brother, the sea god Poseidon, also assisted by stirring up tsunamis and opening up the underground water sources, causing rivers to overflow. So this was a three-pronged assault from the sky, land, and sea, completely engulfing the world. The Babylonian myth. Here, the floodwaters originated from the breaching of the waters of the deep and the waters of the heavens, a supernatural disaster unleashed by the combined effort of the gods. The entire world was covered by surging waters, and it lasted for a full 7 days and 7 nights. As we mentioned earlier, the Sumerian civilization was situated in Mesopotamia, not by the sea, so here the flood is more about an outburst of water between heaven and earth, without a particular emphasis on oceanic elements. The biblical account. In Genesis, the arrival of the flood is depicted as very sacred and grand. All the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened. The rain poured down continuously for a full 40 days and 40 nights. The source of this flood is described as coming from divine springs from above and below rather than the ocean, which also fits the inland geographical context of the ancient Middle East, where there was no Great Sea. Let's briefly summarize the second part. The Greek story emphasizes the combination of natural elements, highlighting a complete natural breakdown. Both the Babylonian and biblical accounts, however, emphasize the imbalance of the sacred structure between heaven and earth, as if the very physical laws of the world were shattered. The role and attitude of the deities, destruction, conflict, or redemption. From the attitudes of the deities behind the flood, we can glimpse each mythological system's unique conception of divinity. The Greek flood. Zeus was the absolute orchestrator of this destruction, with Poseidon merely executing his commands. This reflects the clear division of power, characteristic of the Greek polytheistic system. But interestingly, there were dissenting voices. Prometheus defied Zeus, warning his son Deucalion in advance. This shows that the gods in Greek mythology were not monolithic. They even exhibited heroic defiance. The Babylonian myth. Here, the internal conflicts among the gods are particularly evident. The chief god Enlil coldly pushed for annihilation, while the water god Enki secretly saved humanity. More human-like is the fact that after the flood, the gods even expressed regret for their act of destroying humanity. This humanized characteristic of the gods is fully revealed here. Biblical theology. In the Bible, Yahweh is a unified and omnipotent God who makes decisions and executes punishment alone, but at the same time, he demonstrates boundless mercy. After the flood, he establishes the rainbow covenant with Noah, promising never again to destroy the human world with a flood. Here, God is both a fearsome judge and a benevolent moral arbiter, embodying both majesty and grace. To summarize once more, the gods in Greek mythology are somewhat like rulers with a political structure. The gods in Babylonian mythology are more like deified humans, multifaceted and emotional. The Bible, on the other hand, presents a monotheistic God who embodies supreme authority coexisting with grace. The survivors and cultural symbolism, hope for a new beginning. Finally, let's look at who survived this great flood and the profound cultural symbolism these stories leave us with. The Greek flood. The survivors were Deucalion and his wife Pyrrha. They escaped by heeding the warning of Deucalion's father, Prometheus, and building an ark. After the flood, an oracle commanded them to throw out the bones of their mother, which they cleverly interpreted as throwing the bones of their mother, which they cleverly interpreted as throwing out the stones of the earth. The result? These stones transformed into new human beings. This is the ultimate praise for human wisdom, rationality, and regenerative power. The Babylonian myth. Utnapishtim and his wife were granted immortality by the gods after the flood, directly becoming divine beings. His ark didn't just carry humans, it also brought various animals and skilled craftsmen, foreshadowing the continuation and transmission of culture. This story bears striking similarities to Noah's Ark, but Utnapishtim's obtaining immortality is indeed a unique and thought-provoking element added by this pagan tradition. Noah in the Bible. Noah, due to his integrity and righteousness, was saved by God. His ark preserved the seeds of all life. After the flood, Noah offered sacrifices to thank God, and Yahweh God set a beautiful rainbow as a sign, establishing a new covenant with humanity. This symbolizes reconciliation between humanity and God, and also foreshadows the beginning of a new ethical order. Let's briefly conclude with the survivors and symbolic meanings. Greek emphasizes wisdom and rebirth. Babylonian conveys divine inheritance, even eternal life. The Bible reestablishes a new moral covenant. Conclusion: the civilization code behind the myths. Through this great flood mythical journey, we've discovered that these three civilizations, despite their differing geographies and beliefs, all express profound reflections on order, disaster, humanity, and hope within their flood narratives. Ancient Greek mythology shows the Mediterranean culture's reverence for natural disasters and its praise for human wisdom. Babylonian epic reveals fascinating ethical tensions among the gods and the possibility for humanity to find salvation within it. Biblical narrative, within a monotheistic framework, constructs a complete and profound ethical logic of judgment, destruction, forgiveness, reconstruction. These flood stories are far more than simple myths. They are the profound answers early human civilizations offered when facing survival crises and civilizational revival. They open a wonderful door for us into the ancient mind and worldview. Well, that's all for our comparison of the great flood myths today. After hearing all this, which version struck you the most? Or perhaps which detail from a story left the deepest impression on you? Feel free to leave a comment and share your thoughts. I'm Mr. Looker, and I'll see you in the next episode.